Hey, everybody. Looks like we are live. So, Arc Knight, hello. Michael, hello. How are you? Shia, hello. I guess I don't get any points for making the third comment up there. If Michael's already second. Pond Puppies, Dade, hello, hello. Oh, everything's all right. Same old, same old. I feel like I'm starting to go through seasonal depressional disorder already. But we'll try not to get into that too much tonight. I did decide to bust out the old bongs tonight. So we'll be doing some bong hits after a while. Even got some ice in them. So I woke up this morning. I looked out the back door. And my pond was empty. Well, it wasn't quite empty, but it was pretty damn close. And so, as happens from time to time, the leaves and whatnot from the yard get blown down into the waterfall area. And since I have a bunch of rocks and stuff in there to give it a little bit of splashiness and visual texture, the leaves get packed onto the rocks and eventually it dams up. And then the water, instead of just flowing straight down into the pond, some of it will like go over the edge and splash off to the side. And when that happens, it's, not going back into the pond. So I effectively just sort of pump all the water out of the pond very slowly. And that's what was going on. When I went out and checked, there was one area where the leaves were all piled up and the water was kind of splashing over the side. They were all frozen in a big pile. I had to get out there and pull all the frozen leaves out, get it all cleared out. But of course, my hose is frozen this time of year. So, I couldn't turn the hose on and fill it back up. So I used a bucket in the tub upstairs, in the bathtub, and I filled a 5-gallon bucket up several times and walked it out there. So there's enough water in it that it's running, but it's 8 or 9 inches low. So we got a heat wave coming next week. So in a few days, I'll be able to get the hose out there and fill it back up. Steve. Oh, thank you, Shia. Have I ever heard of Good Eats? I have. I'm not 100% sure about them, but I have heard of them. Yes, tonight we actually are going to clean a fish tank. I want to get my 40 over here that I got my computer and everything set up on. We're going to do a little bit of work in there tonight. And I haven't noticed any baby tetras in there, but you never know. Keep your eyes out when we're over there feeding it. More often than not, that's when I discover that they're in there. If I'm in there feeding the tank, looking at it closely, I'll notice them. But I don't see any. Of course, I also got a disco ball glaring in my eyes while I stand here and try to look at it, so that might be affecting how well I can see it. I do not have any dwarf gourami. And I'm wearing clogs, not thongs. Thongs, of course, being the Australian word for flip-flops. I watched an interesting video today about the Key Bridge. It was more about the new bridge that they're building to replace the old one. It kind of briefly went over the old one and why it fell and how it fell and all that. But it talked a lot about the new one being constructed and why it costs so much, and whether or not the time frame that they've given us is a long time or not. And the first thing I thought, the moment I looked at the rendering, the drawing of what the bridge is going to look like, it reminded me of the Dames Point Bridge in Jacksonville, Florida, which when I lived down there was like a new thing. It was only like 2 or 3 years old when I got down there. But it is Oh, I can't remember what it's like called, a cable tie or a cable suspension type bridge, but it has two really big columns, and then off of those columns come a series of cables that actually hold the bridge up. And it looks at a distance like a big sailboat, and it's the I can't remember the real name of the bridge, but it's called the Dames Point Bridge. It crosses the St. Johns River in Jacksonville. In fact, I was sitting on that bridge in traffic one morning while I had my milk route. When I was a milkman down in Florida, when I was stuck in traffic sitting on that bridge, they broke into the radio to alert us to a massive explosion that had happened out in front of an Oklahoma City government building. And as of yet, the source was unknown, but it was a massive explosion and blah, blah, blah. And of course, that was the Oklahoma City bombing. So I do remember that. I was sitting on that bridge when that happened. But it's the same exact kind of bridge. I mean, it looks almost identical. I even looked up the Florida bridge just to refresh my memory. And I mean, it looks almost identical. But the way everybody talked about it down there, they looked at it as like almost like artwork more than a functional bridge, because of the way it just looks like a couple of sailboats in the St. Johns River, and so that's the way they're going to do the new bridge for the Key Bridge. I don't know what they're going to call it, but it's going to be an awesome bridge. And it's going to be huge. The tops of the columns are going to be 600 feet above the surface of the water. The deck height is going to be like 175 feet off the surface of the water. So they're planning for ships of the future. Not only do they want the largest ships that are currently in existence to be able to easily get in there, they want ships in the future, assuming they're going to be even bigger at some point, to be able to get in there too. And it's supposed to be done by 2030. I doubt it'll be done by then, but that's when it's tentatively scheduled to be finished. So that'll be pretty cool. When they open that up, I'll have to go take a drive over it to check it out. All right, now that you can actually see in the tank, let's go ahead and get it fed. And I got a few other tanks we can probably wipe down tonight as we go around the room. I also brought in my spent mushroom mycelium bag so you can see what the end results after it's all done look like, and then I'm going to throw it away. We're preparing for my new bag to start fruiting here pretty soon. I checked it this morning. It's still not ready, but it's really close. So maybe Sunday night we'll be able to have a look at that and get it opened up and get the fruiting process started. I could probably start now, but I want to let the mycelium grow in a little more. I can still see a lot of the substrate poking through. It doesn't look like an even, complete block of white. It still looks kind of speckly, like stuff growing on the surface rather than being the surface. All right, let me see where I was. Best fish for eating guppy fry in a 20. I think a betta fish would do an amazing job at that. Yeah, see, there you go, Art. I told you I wear clogs, not thongs. Oh, yeah, I didn't mean like that, Steve. Like I'm going to try to get down there on opening day and be one of the first people. I'm just saying at some point when the new bridge is up and running, I'm going to have to get down there and drive over it. I've been over the Key Bridge, the original old Key Bridge that collapsed. I've been over that a million times, but I honestly haven't been over it in 20 years. So it's not like I get down that way very often. I would literally be going down there just for the sake of going over the bridge. So maybe one day when I was going down to House of Tropicals or something like that, I'd say, fuck it, take the extra 15-mile, drive just to check it out and see what it's like. I'll have to do that at some point. But I'm definitely not going to be in any rush to get down there and be one of the first. I do get green water. Well, I won't say that I get green water necessarily, but I've had green water before, and it's algae is what causes it. But what causes the algal outbreak, I've never really been able to identify. A lot of people say high nitrate or high. Well, it looks like I got something hanging off the side of my Wednesday goldfish. The big black goldfish has some looks like some slime coat or something hanging off the side. So maybe we'll do a water change on that tank here pretty soon. Actually, you know what? While we're looking at it, why don't we just go ahead and do a water change on this tank right now? It won't take too long. It's only a 40. And it has been quite a while. So with the green water, I've tried, putting hydrogen peroxide in it in my early days, thinking I could kill the algae with the hydrogen peroxide. The only thing I've ever found that actually worked was either time. Just give it time, let the tank sort itself out, and sooner or later it'll work its way through and the algae will clear up, or putting a water clarifier like a UV light in the tank. That'll clear up green water. Watch out, little fish. All right, got my laundry all bunched up in the hose again. All right, let's get this tank a draining. And when we fill it back up, I might put some IC-X in there just to be sure, because it definitely looked like something on the side of that goldfish. I'm not really sure what it was. It looked like something sort of white and stringy hanging off the side of it. I don't think it was like a fluke or a worm or anything, but there was definitely something in there on that big black goldfish. So we're going to get this water change done. Hey, heavyweight Bob. And as far as my fish filters, everything as far as I know is going well enough with them. Actually, we can keep going around the room because all we're going to do is a water change. And I've already wiped the glass down. I guess we could do a filter change too while we're in there. But in the meantime, let's keep getting everybody fed. This tank could probably use a good glass wiping as well, but I'm not going to bother tonight. All right, let's start with some of the Tetra Crisps. Everybody loves these. Give that a few minutes and let all those get gobbled up, and then we'll come back and we'll put some algae wafers in there. Let me finish my coffee off here and call it a night for that. Man, I went up to Walmart tonight and I was dreading it. I had to get some cat food, and it was either going to be tonight or I was going to have to do it this weekend because we were pretty much out of cat food. I got enough to maybe get through the rest of the night the way my fucking cats eat. So I went up there. I said, better late than never. I want to get there before the evening, crowd comes in after work. And of course, it's Friday. And, I didn't even give a thought to the holiday season. So when I got there, it was like 5:15 or 20:05 or something. And it was dead. I could not believe how dead it was inside. It was like going up there at 9 o'clock at night, which is, when I usually go up there. If I can't go up at like 1 in the afternoon, I'll wait till much later in the night. But it was dead. I couldn't believe how nobody was in there. And when I got to thinking about the actual date, like we're within 2 weeks of Christmas. So this was a Friday evening at nearly 5 o'clock, less than 2 weeks from Christmas. And the Walmart was fucking dead. All the shelves were all fronted. They had aisles of like big screen TVs that were left over from Black Friday. It was shocking. I've had quite a lot of Cory cats over the years, and I still do have one left. It is in my wife's tank upstairs in her room. And the reason I don't keep them a lot anymore is I don't think they do very well in my water. The best luck I've ever had with Corys was with emerald Corys. They seem to live a little longer than some of the other ones I've had. And the peppered Corys. I've had a bunch of peppered Corys over the years. And they tend to do a little better in my water. But early on, I tried a lot of the different Corys and some of the more expensive ones. I've always wanted, but never had one of the lasers, like a green laser or the orange laser. Those things are really expensive, and I could just never bring myself to spend the money on Cory like that, knowing that they typically just don't do well in my water. So they're one of those kind of fish that, as much as I like them, I'm not going to figure out what it is about my water that makes them not like it. Rather, I'm just not going to keep that kind of fish anymore. Same with plants or anything else. If they don't do well in my tanks, then I just don't keep them anymore. I'll get other stuff. And Corys are kind of one of those fish. The German blue rams are one that just don't do well in my water. I always thought dwarf gouramis were one of them, but I found out from talking to a lot of different people that that's apparently the case with everybody's water. Dwarf gouramis just don't seem to live long for anybody. So there's a few fish like that I have out there on my list. And unfortunately, as much as I like my little catfish, and Corys are an awesome, awesome little catfish, I just can't keep them, or at least not long enough to make it justifiable. If I know a fish is going to die in 6 months after I get it, I usually don't get it. It's not a money thing. It's a feeling guilty thing. If it was going to live 4 or 5 years instead of 6, that's fine. I would still get fish like that. But if it's going to live 6 months instead of 8 years, like, no, I'm not going to buy a fish like that just to put it to death in one of my tanks. Shirley. I only got eggs one time, a long time ago, when I had a lot of Corys. Back, my earlier years, probably even before I started the YouTube channel. But I got, look, I don't know if you can see her or not, but Flo's down there beating up on my pleco. The pleco's hiding in the cave, and Flo's in there giving him kisses, trying to get him out of it. I don't know why she has such a problem with him. I wonder if he's the one that eats all of her eggs every time she lays them. It's not like they're going to do anything. She's in there by herself. But, she's a fish. She doesn't know that. She just knows there's some big ass fish in there eating her eggs. So, of course, now that I point the camera at her, she backs off. But you guys have seen her do that before, where she goes up and she's being aggressive, but she's so non-aggressive. And, of course, she's being aggressive toward fucking armored tank fish. There's not a lot she can do, but it looks like she's giving him kisses when she goes up and pecks at him like that. So anyway, I did get one batch of eggs one time. I had an emerald Cory, but it was Swimmy. If you're a long-time viewer, you'll remember Swimmy. She was one of my very first fish I ever got. And I put her in a tank that had a bunch of peppered Corys in it. And about a week later, I saw her in there laying eggs. And so that's how I figured out she was a she. And nothing ever came of it. I never saw any babies. I don't know if the eggs weren't viable or if they didn't hatch or the babies got eaten by something else in the tank. No idea. But that's the closest I ever came. There's one time I had a Cory lay eggs. I never saw her lay eggs again. Yeah, a lot of people mention Dan's fish, and it always throws me off when I read the comment because somebody will say, "Oh, I got one of Dan's fish last week," and I'm like, what are you talking?" And then I realize they're not talking about me; they're talking about Dan's fish. So I've done that quite a few times because apparently they come up often. All right, moving on. This is my unfiltered 40. And I'm happy to say that the bong hits we're going to be doing tonight are my Super Silver Haze has finally cured. You know, it's not, it'll get better over time, but it's cured enough that it's, you know, its flavors come back, its fragrance is there. So I think yesterday was like the 3 week mark on the dot. And so we're going to be starting to work on that. Again, I got enough in there that by the time I get to the end of it, it'll have been in there for quite a while. And so it'll continue to cure and get even sweeter and nicer and smoother as time goes on. Yeah, well, if I got to do all that shit to get baby fish, then I definitely ain't getting no baby fish out of it because that's not how I do things. If they hatch and they live in the tank, then good for them. But if they don't, well, that's nature for you. I don't know why, but I've never been interested at all in breeding fish. I've always had the mentality that if they do breed, then you know, great. But if they don't, that's whatever. I didn't get them to breed them. I'm not interested in it. And in a lot of cases, as many of you out there know, with live bears, guppies in particular, I've wished they'd stop breeding. You know, because it's a pain in the ass. And I always think about things like when my crebensis bred, and for the first several days, I was watching Dad, you know, escort the little family around the tank and everything until one by one they would get left behind, and then that one would get picked off, and another couple would get separated from the group, and they'd get picked off, and eventually there was none left in the tank, which was fine because I didn't know what the fuck I was going to do with all these baby fish. You know, when they grew up, I guess at that point I would have taken them down to House of Tropicals and gotten some store credit or whatever. But for me, it ain't worth my time and gas money driving down there to get, you know, $20 in store credit. You know, it's a few hours out of my day and $15 in gas. So I've just never really been interested in it. Well, maybe not $15 in gas, but it's a drive for me to get down there. It's like a 45-minute drive. And on the highway, if I actually do a few days of driving on the highway and really get my gas mileage average up, the highest I've ever seen it was 16.8, and I was practically doing cartwheels when I'm driving around town. Like if it's in the summertime and I'm going back and forth to the reservoir, or back and forth to the Walmart for 3 or 4 days in a row, it usually sits around like 15.5 or 15.6 miles to the gallon. So yeah, it cost me some money to drive all the way down there. Yeah, Steve, I watched the weather report today. Um, it was another Ryan Hall weather report, so it was more of a broad, overall East Coasty kind of thing. But they definitely said that the map has changed from yesterday when he talked about it, and the Baltimore D.C. area is absolutely in the mix now. And he was saying maybe 2 to 4 inches in some areas, and he said it was going to start late Saturday night and go into Sunday. And so I wasn't really clear about how far into Sunday or how much snow would be coming down. But I immediately thought about whether or not you'd be able to get out here, drive out here. Of course, you got a Subaru, so I wouldn't think it'd be too much of a problem. But then my next thought was like, do we want to go out in a fucking snowy ass, cold, freezing ass day? So whatever, I'll brave it if you're still up for it or whatever. If it's snowing or not, it might be an interesting experience walking around in the woods. Oh shit, I just remembered. I ate the rest of that nerd rope tonight too, and so the fact that I'm just remembering that I did it must mean that once again I ate 2/3 of it this time. I ate the whole remaining length of the rope. Wednesday night I ate a third of it. It was a 400 milligram rope, and I ate a third of it on Monday or on Wednesday night just to see what it would do to me. And again, I forgot I ate it, and so tonight I ate the rest of it, 2/3 of it, which should have been, you know, 260 milligrams or something like that. And I just remember because I'm talking to Steve, and that's where I got the rope from. But it ain't because I feel it. Shamu. Yeah, I think my wife gets like 27 miles to the gallon on average or something like that. She drives a Forester. And we do a lot of our driving. Like when you look at the mileage on a car, they give you the city rating and then the highway rating. And highway is like, 65 miles an hour, continuous, no stop and go, no construction, just moving without stopping. And then city driving is the opposite of that. It's drive a block, stop, drive a block, stop, drive a block, stop. I don't do a lot of either of those, but I'm somewhere in the middle. A lot of the roads I drive on are like long country roads, and it's a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit. But I'm going up and down hills, and I'm having to stop for the occasional left turning vehicle, and so it's not city driving, but it isn't highway driving either. And that's the vast majority of the kind of driving I do. Maybe I am feeling that rope a little bit. As I just turned the corner right there, everything kind of whooshed around me as I turned. So I guess that would probably be an effect from eating a bunch of weed. Maybe I should have eaten the whole damn thing in one go. But oh God, it was so gross. I barely got it down. I'd have to eat a little bit of it, drink some coffee to get the taste out of my mouth. And then when I'd kind of gotten over it, I'd eat a little more of it. It took me like 15 minutes to get it all down. Yeah, well, my truck is paid off. Yeah, I'll say I'm feeling those. It said on the package that it's supposed to take effect within an hour, and I ate it at 6:30. So we're now at the 2 hour mark, and I'm just kind of noticing that I'm feeling it, and I had to stop and think about it in order to do that. So, I must have a pretty high tolerance for the weeds. I couldn't afford a $4,000 used car right now if I had to. All right, let's get the water flow reversed because that tank is pretty damn getting close to empty. All right, now I don't have to put a lot of warm water in here since it's goldfish, but we are going to bring it up to temperature close because I don't want to. Oh, well, there's not even a heater in that tank. Never mind. Normally, when I refill the tanks, I'm not super worried about getting the water temperature really close for the sake of the fish. If it's, even 4 or 5 degrees cooler after the water change, that's not going to bother the fish, especially since it's going to warm up within an hour or so. It's not like they're being kept at that lower temperature. Just being brought down to that lower temperature for a little while is, again, not going to bother the fish at all. However, if you've got like a big 300-watt heater in the tank or something like that, and you fill it back up with considerably cooler water, now you're just burning a bunch of electricity with your heater running in order to get the tank warmed back up. And so if you can just bump up a little bit of hot water into the tank, it's a lot more efficient way of, getting the tank back up to temperature. And then that way your heater doesn't have to come on after your water change. That's the only reason I really worry about it. I'm not so concerned about the fish being bothered. Well, for as much as I fucked with that camera, it still came out pretty goddamn wonky. Maybe I'm feeling that rope a little more than I realized. Yeah, that's the kind of calculations I do, is thinking about like, all right, fine. For example, I thought about the Ford, because the truck I drive is a Ford Explorer Sport Track. So it's the kind that's got like an SUV front end, and back seats, but then it's got like the pickup truck rear end on it. And I've got a really nice one. It's like the limited edition. It's got nice everything on it. I've got the solid tonneau cover on the back, power everything. It's got the V8 in it, so tons of power. And the Ford Maverick is an electric hybrid that's basically the same shaped vehicle. It's that sort of four-door, front and back seat, but then you got the little short pickup truck bed on the back. And I really looked at them because I like it a lot. And I was thinking if I ever had to get a new vehicle, that would be a good one to get. But they're like $30,000. They're really basic, and that's like the really super basic model. And then when I looked at the gas mileage and everything, it averages like 30 miles to the gallon because it's a hybrid. So it's still using gasoline. And so I thought, all right, it will double my fuel mileage, but it also has half the size of the fuel tank. It's only got like a 10-gallon fuel tank. I got like a 22-gallon tank on my truck. And so with twice the fuel mileage, but half the capacity, I'm going to have to go to the gas station just as often. I'll just get less gas each time I go. So it's not going to say, it's not like I'm going to only go to the gas station once a month. And then if you think about the savings in gas, when you really add it up, it'll be like $50 a month savings in gas or whatever. Do I really want to have a $400 or $500 a month car payment to save $50 in gas to drive a basic ass vehicle with no power? Or I can just stay in my nice, it's old, but it's kind of swanky for its age, V8 pickup truck. And so for me, it's no question, as long as this truck keeps functioning and I can keep it fixed up for a little bit here, a little bit there, this is what I'm going to be in for a long damn time. No, I don't have leather seats, fortunately. I hate leather seats. And I don't have heated seats or heated mirrors. I don't even think they had that kind of stuff back in my day when I got, when that truck was made. A cichlid in a 20 is already extremely limited. You got about 3 of them that I can think of. There's probably more out there. I'm not a cichlid expert or anything, but I can't think of a single cichlid that's not going to go after a mono shrimp. Even a small one like a crebensis or an apisto is plenty big enough to eat shrimp. And cichlids are just going to eat shrimp as far as I know. I can't imagine them not. So I think you're kind of out of luck on that one. Green Thumb, how are you doing? Oh, I didn't even think about the insurance. That's a good point. Hey, TK. And of course, since the truck is paid off, I don't have to have full coverage and all that kind of stuff. I do have full coverage just because I don't, can't afford to get it fixed if something really bad happens to it. So we do have to have full coverage on it. But we're all old and we don't have any points on our license. I don't even know what we pay in insurance, but it's not a lot. Yeah, I can't stand leather seats. I don't like any kind of leather seats. I don't care if they're soft, supple, like deer leather. I just don't like leather seats. All right, let's move on to the next tank. We are still filling the goldfish tank up, so I got to keep that in mind. Don't want to get too distracted here. All right, we're going to stick with the crisps since I've thrown them in every other tank so far this evening, so why not? Oh, you know what? I need to get in here too. Oh, that was a lot. I need to get in here too and get the filter intake cleaned out. It was spitting bubbles last night, so I know it's getting clogged up and is in need for I got to get in there and clear that out. All right, let me do a bong hit while I'm standing here waiting. I need to go get some weed first. I brought everything in but the weed. And there's a reason for that. It's because I smoked it all already. I have completely filled my container of seeds with my self-seeded plant. And I'm trying to find a bud that's small enough to just bring in as a bud, but all these are big chunky motherfuckers. There's a little one. No, it's not. All right, I'm just going to break a big chunky one in half. Bring in some smaller pieces. I'll probably be back in here in 10 minutes getting the chunky part anyway. But that plant I had that's self-seeded, I've still got half a jar of it left, so I'm going to get more and more seeds every time I grind up a bunch of bud to make my joints out of. I collect up all the seeds out of it. And so I filled up one of those containers, and I have a second container that is already over half full. So if anybody is interested in some seeds, I've got a lot of them. All right, we're going to start tonight out of my everyday smoker, my regular old size bong. Look how spiffy and clean and sparkly that is. I got that all cleaned up just for you tonight. Beautiful, isn't it? All right, now I need to get a lighter. Maybe that rope's better than I thought. Thought I was prepared for tonight. Dicking around for the last like 40 minutes waiting to go live, and you'd think I'd have had all this stuff ready and waiting. But then that just wouldn't be me now, would it? Yeah, I've got the cloth seats in my truck. I don't like the plastic or the vinyl, but I really don't like the leather. Although with my lifestyle, between my outdoorsiness and fishing and kayaking and all that kind of stuff, plus my deer repellent business, having plastic seats or vinyl seats might not be a terrible idea. The cloth material tends to hold the fragrances in. Yeah, I've been a pickup truck person pretty much my whole life. But again, with the lifestyle I live between, my kayak back and forth and fishing, and then with my deer repellent and everything, I'm obviously not going to be doing all that stuff out of an automobile, a standard car. Like my wife, again, has the Forester. So she's got the all-wheel drive and the traction. So again, where we live with the snow and the driveway and everything, she can get through it as well as I could in my truck. She just doesn't need the pickup truck style vehicle. For a lot of years, she had either the pickup truck or like the big Ford Explorer SUV. And when we were getting rid of the Explorer, she really thought about it. Like, do I need like what do we do? Like, we get groceries. Like, I've got the truck if we need to get, truck stuff. And so she decided she was going to move to more of a four-wheeler car. The only thing she doesn't like about it is how low to the ground it sits compared to what she's used to. Again, being up in a truck. But my Explorer is actually smaller than hers was. And when I sit side by side with her, like in traffic or whatever, my head doesn't sit much higher than hers does in my Sport Track Explorer. It's a pretty small model. So I don't drive around feeling like I'm in a big truck or anything. Oh, she's got an Outback. I keep saying Forester. I don't know why I keep saying Forester. She's got an Outback. See, Steve knows what my wife drives better than I do. Oh, shit. I forgot the tank was filling. It's just about done, so we're going to call that good and turn it off. That was a close one. Not like hair breadth close, but it's pretty much where I want it. So we don't need to put any more water in there. I got about a half inch before it overflowed, so it wasn't panicky, but it's only a 40-gallon tank, so another minute and it would have been panicky. So yeah, we managed to do that without overflowing it. Let's get the hose out of here, and we are still going to do a quick water change on the 40. I'm going to use the regular vinyl hose, and we're going to suck a bunch of crud and some of that hair algae and stuff out of there. Did you ever get to the store, Steve, and get your vinyl hose that you were looking for? If you go to the Lowe's or the Home Depot, I can't remember which aisle it's in, whether it's like the plumbing aisle where you find the PVC pipe or whatever, but you'll find it in one of the aisles, and there's a whole section that's got rolled up lengths of tube. There's a few little pre-cut sections that are, like 24 inches long or whatever, but above that you'll see rolls, and it's got everything from like you know, the little 1/8 inch airline size hose all the way up to like 1/2 inch diameter, big ass vinyl hose. And you just pull it off the roll to whatever length you need it. And they got the little shears right there. You cut it, you know, and then boom, you got your length of hose. I like the look of the Colorado. I will admit that. I'm usually not a Chevy guy as far as looks go, but I do like the way the Colorado looks. It's still a Chevy though, so I'd never buy it. But I do like the way it looks. I will give it that. I haven't owned a General Motors product since my 1981 Pontiac Firebird. That's the one I had painted black and purple. All right, let's move on because I do want to get some work done tonight. And so we're not going to spend all night with the feedings. In fact, we're not going to spend much time on this tank at all because you can barely see in there and there's not a lot of fish in there. I am going to throw the sinking granules in there. And so if you pay attention to the bottom, we'll get you down a little bit lower so you can see the bottom a little better. You pay attention to the bottom, you'll see my loaches. They tend to come out pretty quickly when I throw the granules in there because they sink straight to the bottom. So not going to get too much of a look at the angelfish, although these again sink pretty quickly. The angelfish might be feeding off the bottom, but the loaches will come out pretty quickly. And these are striated bodia. They're not zebra loaches and they're not striped loaches. I've looked, they're different fish. But if you look up striated bodia, you'll see the ones that I have that you're going to be seeing here in a minute. They should be popping out. Oh, there's a couple popping out of the rocks now. There's 5 of them in there and they're pretty big, pretty chunky. I'm not going to disagree with that, Heavyweight. My car ain't modern though. I'd be able to put antique tags on it next year. Although Maryland just passed a new law saying that, and I'm not sure how this works. I don't know if it's like a rolling number or if it's just a cutoff date, but no car is now allowed to have antique tags if it was made after the year 2000. So mine's a 2007. So it's almost 20 years old. But I don't think I'll ever be able to put antique tags on it because it's restricted to any vehicle made prior to the year 2000 can be tagged as historic or antique or whatever. I wouldn't do it anyway because I drive too many miles a year to be able to do that for my insurance. I'm also not somebody that likes new cars. I got a friend that wants to get, he leases, well, he hasn't in a while. He kind of stopped doing that several years ago, but he used to lease a vehicle until he had a kid. And every couple of years he would turn it in and get like a newer updated version, or you get something different. And like, no, I don't like that. I like my truck to feel like an old comfortable shoe. If I could spend the rest of my life in the truck I'm currently driving, that would be A-okay with me. When you say you're in a Camaro, for whatever reason, I'm always picturing you driving like a, brand new modern Camaro rather than like an old school bitchin' Camaro. Although 12 years ago isn't that old school. Not exactly like a 70s Camaro like I'm thinking. All right, we're going to skip over the 40. I will feed it, but it's such a non-looking tank that I'm going to go ahead and feed it now so we can get some work done to it when we're done feeding the other tanks. So I just topped this tank off, and as you can see, I really topped it off. I just went ahead and put the last little bit of what was in the watering can in there, and it came up to that edge. And so I lose more water out of this tank to evaporation than any other tank in the room. And when I topped it off tonight, the water level was like all the way down to here. I had to put 2 watering cans in it just to fill it back up. So I do lose a lot to this. It's right here on the corner. I do have the fan. If you look down here, you just about make it out. This black thing on the floor right there is one of those round fans. It moves a surprising amount of air. And I have it kind of blowing up towards the ceiling. So it blows right across here. And if you look in the evening, you can actually see the curtains hanging there. If I pull them over to kind of block this light out of my eye, you can see the curtains moving. So there's clearly a lot of air moving past this tank. And then tonight I actually have my heater on blowing into the room, which again is blowing right past that tank. So it's not surprising that I lose so much water to evaporation here. All right, let's see if we can get everybody to come over to their corner to feed. I got that stupid Anubias plant is in the damn way, so let's push that over here. The water flowing in is what's pushing it around. All right, so the food's in the tank. Let's see how long it takes the fish to figure it out. We'll go ahead and throw a little food in here. Let's see. That sounds almost like my very first tank. I didn't get the long fin, but I got I had a 10-gallon tank and I put 5 black skirt tetras in it, a powder blue gourami, an emerald cory. I think I put some neons in it, and I had a rubber lip pleco in there. And that was my very first tank I ever set up. And that emerald cory is the one I was actually talking about a little while ago. I had that fish for 10 or 11 years, and it was literally, again, you can't say which was the first fish I bought because I bought a tank full of fish for my first fish. And so that cory was amongst that batch of fish when I got it. And again, for my very first fish to have it live, 10 or 11 years, that's pretty good, I think. That's almost average lifespan for a cory. I think they typically live a little longer than that, maybe 15 years or something. But I think 11 years out of a PetSmart cory, and she was deformed. She had sort of a bent, crooked tail, which I didn't realize until after she started to grow and get a little bigger. I got a clearer look at her. Again, this was my first batch of fish. I didn't hand select the ones I want. I just said, give me one of those, and they scooped one out for me, and that's what I took home. So again, I got a pretty good run out of my first fish. They are black neons. I've got black neons and what were they called? Brilliant Rasporas in there, and then one really, really fat guppy. And then, of course, No Face is my betta fish in there. All right, we got quite the crowd tonight. And I know I'm standing here chatting about auto insurance and whatnot, but if anybody has any fish questions or comments or, has a topic they want to hear my thoughts on or whatever, by all means, throw it out there. I'll be more than happy to talk about it. Your cories are your largest fish? Well, I definitely cannot say that cories are my largest fish for sure. All right, I am not going to put any medication in the goldfish tank. I'm going to wait and give it a day or two and see if that little smudgy spot on the side doesn't clear up. Every time I've seen something like that on the fish and then I get in there and do a water change, it clears it up. I know it's a terrible way of going about doing it. I don't really think about it until I see something that makes me think about it. And I'm like, oh, shit, I need to do a water change. So that is not my typical MO. That's just for whatever reason. That's just one of those tanks that I just don't do a lot of water changes on. It's just kind of habitual. And it's kind of weird. It's not based on what's in the tank. It's based on the physical tank. That's just one of those tanks like my 29. I've just gotten in a habit of not doing frequent water changes on that tank. And so regardless of what's in it, I still treat the tank the same way. And it's kind of a fucked up way of doing it when you think about it. Because that 40 with those big ass goldfish in there, you know, it's got a really high bioload on it. It's such a high bioload, I had to add a sponge filter to it to keep it clear. So I really do need to step up my maintenance schedule on that tank and do water changes a little more frequently. Oh, look, I got, I thought I'd separated my pair of discus, but if we look back there, you will see mom and dad on the heater with all their little eggs. So I got discus eggs again. I wonder if I got a new pair now that I removed that one female. Yes, Dave, I was just thinking about that. I'll show you guys the shrimp tank real quick. So I just added a sponge filter to this shrimp tank down here. It's a tiny little sponge filter that Art gave me, but I've had cloudy water in this tank for a long time and it's just not clearing up. And so I did add that sponge filter and it's getting there. It's clearing. It's still got a ways to go, but it is a marked improvement. So it's definitely working. And again, I'm not sure how well you can see it, but that little bit of water flow you can see coming out of there was all the water flow that was in the tank. So even with the air stone and that water flow, you can see how still the surface is. There's barely any water movement on it at all. And so that tiny bit of circulation, regardless of how much stuff I have in the tank, you know, I always talk about having lots of rocks and substrate and plants and woodwork and, you know, all that surface area provides for a good biological filtration. But I also always stress that you have to have the good circulation along with it. So regardless of how full that tank is and how much stuff I have in there, the fact that the water is just not moving around the tank, you know, I'm just not getting the biological filtration I need. So the sponge filter in there with the little air stone on it is going to do two things. It's going to add the biofiltration provided by the sponge itself, but that air stone is actually going to move water around the tank more. It's going to pull water up out of the bottom and take it to the surface. And that in itself is going to improve the quality of the tank. So with the double whammy like that, the improved circulation and the addition of a sponge filter, I'm 100% confident that's going to completely clear that tank up. It's just going to, as I said the other day, it's going to take a couple of weeks to do it. So what did we do that last Sunday? So it's been less than a week already. And we have a noticeable improvement at this point. Do I have any suggestions with territorial fish? There's not a lot you can do with territorial fish other than break up lines of sight. You know, if you've got a fish that has a territory at one end of the tank, you can try putting some stuff in the middle of the tank so that the fish at the other end of the tank are kind of out of sight of the one that's territorial. Provide a lot of habitat and hiding places for the other fish so that they also can, you know, get shelter from the fish when it's being aggressive towards them. But otherwise, like, that's just the nature of the fish. And when you think about, like, even a large aquarium like this, something the size of a small cichlid, like an apisto or a crib, in nature, their little territory around their nest might be 2 or 3 square feet, or, you know, a 2 or 3 foot diameter area. And when you really think about the surface area, this huge 125-gallon tank is probably not even the same amount of space as a small fish would have as its territory in the wild. So when you coop them all up like that, and then you put a territorial fish in the environment, it just makes it really difficult to have other fish in the tank. That's why I am, you know, all my tanks are limited on the kind of fish I can have. You don't see me with a lot of cichlids, and, you know, you don't see me with aggressive fish. There's a ton of fish out there I'd love to have, but you just kind of got to keep them in a tank by themselves, or maybe a few other large aggressive fish. And it's just, that's not my style of fish keeping. So it really limits the number of fish I can even keep, or at least I'm willing to keep. Two green sunfish. I love the green sunfish. They're super aggressive though. And I've never had a severum either. I've always wanted one, but I've never gotten one. There's a few like common fish out there. Oh, she's actually in there. If you can see her now, she's actually in the process of laying the eggs. I thought they were just protecting them, but she's actually currently depositing them. That's why she's sliding up the length of the heater in there. Now, I do have that heater unplugged, and so I'm not going to, those eggs aren't going to get fried. And I did get a recommendation the last time that they did this from a friend of mine. He said to put a low light on the tank at night to represent, or replicate like a full moon. You don't want it lit up like daytime. The fish still need their night cycle. But if there's enough light on it that the fish can see, it'll allow them to protect the fish at night rather than having, predatory fish come up in the darkness and get them. And while I still didn't get a successful hatch out of it, they were in there for several days before they were finally gone, and that they're usually gone overnight. And so I think the idea of putting the light on the tank actually helped. So I'm going to try that again since they're in there spawning, but we're also not going to do anything. Honestly, I could just pull the heater's not plugged in. I could just pull the heater out with the eggs on it and stick it in my tank in the other room. Of course, the tank in the other room is full of shrimp. I think they'd make pretty short work of the eggs. So maybe I'll have to think about that. I'll have to plan out a tank to prepare it. And then, because they always seem to lay on that heater for some reason, which is why I unplugged it. I didn't want them laying on it. And then, of course, the heater kicks on and cooks all the eggs. So it's just a heater sitting in there. Again, I could just pull it right out and those eggs would still be intact on it. I've never thought about that before. I tried putting a piece of slate in there, and I thought maybe if I could get them to lay on the slate, I could take the slate out. Never crossed my mind that I could still do that. I could just pull the heater out. Thank you, Weed Ropes, for making me think about that. The shrimp won't eat the eggs, are you sure? I like the Jack Dempseys. Those are awesome looking fish. I like Oscars. Those are awesome. Interesting. Maybe we'll do that then. Pull that out and stick it in my shrimp tank in the other room. See if I don't have a bunch of baby discus swimming around in there after a while. Don't the baby discus need to be with their parents, though, after they're born? Don't they feed off of the slime coat or something for the first several days before they're capable of eating other foods? And this is actually another tank that we need to wipe down. So let's get this wiped down real quick, and then we'll do the water change on the 40. It's already 9 o'clock. I don't want to wait too much longer. And I really need to do something with that end of the tank. It's a friggin' jungle. All right, calm down, everybody. We've been through this before. I'm not going to do the whole tank. Once you get out of this area right here, there's so much darkness that the algae doesn't really grow on the glass. And this isn't anything heavy, but it's just like a light film of green growing over the glass. And since the latter portion of the live stream is me sitting in front of this tank, it's kind of nice to have this one at least nice and clear. I don't worry too much about the tanks that we're just going to look at for a few minutes while we feed them. But this one needs to be enjoyable to look at. The water's actually getting kind of tannin stained again too, so maybe we'll do a water change on this one soon. I don't feel like it's been very long since we did a water change on this one, but as long as there is wood in the tank, the tannins will always build up. There is no such thing as, getting all the tannins out of a piece of wood. As long as it's in there, it will continue to release tannins. Maybe I should use my melamine sponge because I can still feel stuff on the glass. Or maybe it's the rope again. And if you just joined us and you're wondering what I mean about the rope that I keep talking about, I ate a whole big length of marijuana gummy rope that was all covered in nerds. It was disgusting, but it seems to be having an impact on me. I ate like a third of it the other night, and I completely forgot that I'd eaten it. Tonight I ate the rest of it, so I ate 2/3 of it, and yeah, I'll definitely say that I can feel it. All right, let's get on with doing some water changing on this tank. Put you over here out of my way a little bit. We got to do some prep work before we can even get started on this tank. Got to clear off the top area. And the hinge on the glass is separated. And so with this tank, I actually have to remove the front panel and set it off to the side. So let me make room for all that. Let me see. Let me turn the overhead light on too. Make it a little bit brighter. All right, first thing we need to do is get this up and out of the way. Take the light off of it. Set that over there. And we take this front panel off. Set that down here. And now we'll do the water change. I managed to do all that without making a bunch of grunting noises. All right, let me see which end goes in the tank. This end goes in the tank. All right, first thing I want to do is get all this algae out of here. I don't know how well you can see all the crud going up in there, but we're getting a ton of stuff out of here. And a lot of the hair algae and some dead plant material, a bunch of loam and crud. I have not done a filter change on this tank in well over a year and a half now. So I don't know how much is actually being filtered out of this tank anymore. But back here is what I really was most interested in. I got a big pile of loam that is collected. It sort of builds up underneath where the filter intake is. So it's getting slowly pulled in that direction, but it doesn't quite make it up the filter. So one of these days we'll have to get in there and do a filter change on this one. One of these days we're actually going to get in here and do some actual work on this tank and revamp it and get it set up a little better. Hang on, I got a clog in the line. There we go. I didn't even see all this hair algae up here. All right, I'm going to call that good. The bucket is full, and I got pretty much everything I wanted to get out of there. So top that back off and call it good. So not a huge improvement, but it does look a lot nicer not having all that hair algae all over everything. And then I did get a bunch of the loam and crud out of it that you can't see too well from the camera angle, but if you're standing there, you can see the back of the tank, very clearly. And it was just like an inch deep pile of loam. Well, maybe not. Don't know what that was, but something just fell down. Maybe not an inch deep, obviously, but it was, a lot of loam back there. So we got that taken care of. So let's get the tank topped off and we will call it good. And I'm just running cold water into it. We're not putting enough water in it to make much of a difference. I'm going to pull this big ass snail off the glass here. I'm going to pull this big ass snail off the glass here. Let go. Let go. He is not letting go. There he goes. I'm going to pull this big snail off the glass here. Going to get this big snail off the rock. And then we're going to take them over here. And we're going to drop them in the 29. So that'll make for some nice nummy loach food. All right, you look at that for a minute. I'm going to get this bucket out of the room, get this dumped out. And I don't want to wander too far because that's not going to take long to fill up. I really got to start working out again. All right. I got the world's most abused septic system. All right, I'm going to move you guys over here. There's no point in watching that last minute or two of the tank topping off. But the discus is still in there laying eggs. So if you want to pay attention to this upper corner, you can see the female up there. Here, let me raise you up a little. You can see that female in there still laying her eggs. And the tank is almost done. Oh, I found another snail up here in the corner, so we're going to pull this one out. We'll throw that in the 29 along with the others. And if you give me half a second, I'll get caught up on the comments and whatnot here. I don't want to get distracted because we're almost full. You know what? I should have grabbed the net while we were in there doing the water change. I should have tried to get those minnows out, throwing them into the pond. All right, looks like Michael said goodbye. I'll get caught up more proper here in a minute. So goodbye, Michael, if you're still there. Hey, Robert. All right, we are moments away from me going and shutting this water off. So just be patient and I'll be right back with you. Well, I mean, I can keep talking to you, but I don't want to get distracted. So let me stay focused here. All right, I'm calling it. All right, we'll get the hose put away and then we'll get the tank closed back up. And then I can come sit down and hang out for a little while. I just remembered the night that we had talked on Wednesday about making one of those fish towers in the pond. And I have something that I could do that with. But I need more stuff to be able to do it properly. I need something to sit the plastic tower on, like a couple of cinder blocks or something that I could put in the tank. But I just haven't figured out what I could set that on. I honestly didn't think about it again until about an hour ago. Well, about an hour before I went live. And so I didn't spend a lot of time thinking about it, but I did a quick inventory in my head of anything I could use around here in the basement that would be a viable option. And I couldn't think of anything. So I'll ponder it. We'll come up with something maybe. One of these days we'll try to build a fish tower in the pond. And if I don't like it, I can always take it down. But it'll be an interesting thing to do. All right. This is my mushroom bag before I sit down. That is what it looks like when it's done. Let me peel it open. So when I harvest it, I cut slits down the bag all the way down to the bottom so that I can open it all the way up. I do that on all four corners. So I have a complete thing to work with. And then I just, when I do the second, the next thing, I just fold it back up and put tape on the corners and close the bag back up. So when I harvest it, I do that to it. And that is all that's left of it. If you look in the middle, you can see I cut a wedge out of the center. Let me see which direction I want to go. There you go. See how it looks like almost just like sawdust or something in the middle? This stuff down in here is like really dry and powdery, but that's just a rock solid chunk of whatever. That's it. That's the end of the bag. That's going in the trash. So we'll have a quick look at the new one. I know it's not done yet, but it ain't going to hurt to open it up and show it to you because it's getting really close to being ready to start fruiting. So it's been 2 weeks and 1 day since I inoculated it. Or no, 1 month and 1 day since I inoculated it. And you can see it's getting pretty solidly covered, but you can also see that there's plenty of substrate still showing through. The bottom of it actually looks pretty good. The bottom of it's almost completely white. That's more like what you want to see, is just a block of white. So we're really close. When that's completely white, we'll start fruiting it and I'll start getting more mushrooms out of it. And this thing weighs about 8 pounds with all the substrate and moisture and everything that's in there. The one I threw away weighed about a quarter pound, weighed like 3 ounces or 4 ounces. It's dry as a husk. All right, let me get my light turned on and I'm going to sit down. All right, do I have everything I need? Probably not, but we're going to sit down anyway because I can always get back up. Oh, I just sat in a bunch of water. Now my butt's moist. All right, let me see where I was. Is that good enough for the camera? You guys good? Can you see me okay? All right, let me see. All right, let me see where I was. So Michael asked some questions, but Michael already said good night. Oh, thank you, Green Thumb. The Crips in my 55, I don't know if you were here. I thought you were here earlier when we were doing the feeding, but that tank right here, this 55, I mean, that thing gets so full of Crips you can't see the tank anymore. I got to get in there every once in a while and just completely clear it out. All right, I just lost about 1/3 of my viewers, which always happens every time I sit down in front of the camera. It's like clockwork. I do find that amusing. Let me see. Got a deal on 1 ounce of Scooby Snacks. Got 2 free grams of Purple Kush. Nice. For $60. That is a deal. That's a good weed day, Robert. Oh, let me see. Janice. All right, I'm all caught up. So I just wanted to make sure I was not missing anybody's comments or anything. So again, good night, Michael. Sorry I didn't get to answer your questions, but I was busy with my tank and I didn't see them until just now. So, all right, now that I'm sitting down, I've been saving this big stupid bong for Then, of course, all my ice is melted now. The problem with this bong is that it's so big and there's so much volume to fill up that your lungs are half full by the time the bong hit's done. And so when you carburate it, you can't do the whole hit and you leave a ton of smoke in the bong. And the way to correct for that is to fill it with ice, and it fills up the space and allows you to do a much better bong hit. And so I did that before we went live, and now, of course, all the ice is melted. So we'll do our best. But that's why I don't particularly care for this bong. You guys aren't even going to see the whole thing. I'll have to stand up so you can see some of it. I got most of it. Yeah, not bad. I got the bulk of it out of there. That's that super silver haze, and it's finally cured. Bobby, how are you this evening? I don't think it counts as a lost view. It would probably count as 2 views while both were open, but then when the phone went to sleep, that view probably would drop off. But it's always, every time I do it, it doesn't matter how many viewers I have. But tonight I had about, I think, 29 or 30 when I sat down, and within a minute or two, it was down to 21. If I have 13 viewers and I sit down, it goes down to 8 or 9. Like every single time I got a certain amount of viewers when I'm going around the room, feeding and everything. But when it comes time to sit down, like there's a lot of people that that's not what they're here for. They want to see my tanks, and then they're done, and then they roll out as soon as I sit down and start talking. So again, I just find it amusing, and it's a really consistent number too. It's usually about a third of the amount of people that are viewing bail as soon as I sit down. Oh, I'm doing well enough, Bobby. Hey, Direwolf, how are you doing? Yeah, we're all the way back up to 22 people. Nice. What was I getting ready to say? Oh, I'm really already sick of winter, and it's not even winter yet, but the weather's been so cold and gray, and I feel like I haven't been outside in forever. I'm already starting to get like antsy and stiff and sore from just sitting around. I'm taking like 2 naps a day just to pass the time. Like, this is how I'm supposed to be in like the end of February or the beginning of March, like hanging on those last few weeks until the weather breaks. And I already feel like this, and we haven't even gotten to winter yet. So it's going to be a long fucking winter. I'm hoping we're actually supposed to go through like a really unusual warming period right after this unusually cold period goes past. It's going to be like 40 degrees above average. And one year I was able to get out on the kayak on December 31st. It was like a 70-degree day. And the kayak season ends December 31st and doesn't open again until March. So after December 31st, doesn't matter if we have one of those nice, weird, warm January days or whatever, the reservoir's closed. And so in the next couple of weeks, the second half of December is supposed to be unusually warm. So I'm toying with the idea that I might be able to actually get out on the water one last time. I haven't been out since July. So I might be able to get out on the water one last time. I think that would do me a lot of good. Get out, get some exercise, some fresh air, and that sort of thing. But I'm already losing my damn mind, and we haven't even gotten to winter yet. The upshot is when we do get to winter, I know weather-wise we still have like the whole of winter ahead of us, but astronomically the days start getting longer, and I hang on to that. Like as far as the solstice, the days are not getting shorter anymore, and we've passed the fucking worst of it and are moving back out of it. So we got like a week left, and the days are going to start getting longer. Yay. Yeah, it's been crazy cold. And tomorrow and Sunday are supposed to be like the bad shit's coming through now. I think I was watching the video and it talked about somewhere like in the Midwest, the actual temperature was going to be -20, and with the winds, the wind chill was going to be -50. But that's insane. Like, who would want to live in a place like that? So, like, it's been in the 20s here during the day and getting down into the teens at night. And we have experienced colder snaps than that before, but they're usually like in the end of January, February. We get them 5-degree nights and stuff like that. But, you know, we're getting 5-degree nights over the next few days, and it's not even winter yet. So it's a weird one. Well, not for me because I don't go outside when it's cold like this. I did go out today. I went to Walmart, and I'm to the age now where I don't want to like bend over and tie on my shoes. So the only time I put on like my boots is when I'm going out working or hiking or something like that. If I'm just going out to get the mail, I just put on a pair of slippers or my clogs. I wear these. They're knockoff Crocs. They're Walmart brand Crocs, and I wear them every damn wear. Um, I never thought I would, but I've tried a pair on and they're really comfortable. And so I can hose them off. They're just made out of rubber. So they're really convenient to walk around in, but it's fucking cold outside and these things are not warm. And so I bought a pair of what are essentially slippers. But they're like a little booty slipper. They're over the ankle. They're fur, they're fleece lined. They got memory foam on the inside. But they've got like a hard tread on the bottom and they're water resistant. And so that's what I've been wearing when I go outside now. And so my feet are fucking toasty warm when I go out. Um, the rest of me, maybe not so much, but my feet are definitely toasty warm. Yeah, we got at least 4 months. I've still had ice in my yard in June before. So, depending on how long it lasts, it ain't a guarantee that the end of March is going to be nice weather. We still get snow in April. We might still have 5 more months of cold weather. Ciao, how are you, TRC? Yeah, the cold weather was going to dip way down. Like the West Coast isn't getting hit too much. It's kind of swooping down on the East Coast. And so, like northern Tennessee and down in Kentucky, like they're going to see freezing temperatures way down south as this cold air pushes in. And so, you know, again, you've all heard me go on about it. I'm not going to go on about it again, but I'm aware of the fact that if you're in an area that you're not used to cold weather, just because it isn't cold to me doesn't mean it isn't going to affect that area. So getting down into some of them southern states that it's going to get down to freezing temperatures, that ain't normal for them, and it's going to be bad. Those people are going to not know what the hell to do with temperatures that cold. 0 degrees, or freezing temperatures are cold enough anywhere. You get down into the South where they're not used to it, and that's a different story. We were supposed to get a little bit of snow today, and we never did. No, dude. Believe it or not, I've got shoes like Imelda Marcos. They all serve a purpose, but I have a lot of pairs of shoes. I've got 2 pairs of hiking boots that come almost up to my knee. They used to be waterproof. I don't really wear them anymore because the waterproof doesn't work, and so that's the only reason I had those really high boots like that. I don't really need knee-high hiking boots, but I do have those. I've got my regular hiking boots. I've got 2 pairs of like slip-on tennis shoes that I wear. I've got a pair of trail running shoes that I wear. I've got my indoor slippers. I've got my outdoor slippers. I've now got my consider my clogs like my outdoor slippers. And then I got those new warm fuzzy boots. Like when you come in my back door, there's a fucking pile of shoes that are all mine lined up. Some of the more seasonal stuff. stays in my office, you know, like my big knee-high hiking boots and stuff that I don't wear very often. I also have a pair of neoprene rubber boots that I wear a lot in the summer and winter, honestly. And I have a pair of sandals that I wear occasionally by the back door. So for somebody that doesn't like to wear a lot of clothes and doesn't have much of a wardrobe, I have a shit ton of shoes. I think I have more shoes than my wife does. I do have dress shoes from like 100 years ago, but I don't even know if I still fit them. I honestly don't even know if I still have them. They're probably in the closet. They're like the shoes I wear when I have to go to a funeral or something. Oh, I'll run upstairs and get these booties. I fucking love these things. I wore them out to Walmart tonight, and they are so warm. And of course, they got the memory foam on the inside, so they're super comfortable. In fact, I might just slip them on my little tooties. Give you a fashion show. They definitely have loud soles, though. I can't sneak around in these. Now, I'm going to forewarn you, these things are a whole lot of sexy. Look at that. How is that for a big outdoor warm tootie slipper? And it's definitely good for coming down here in the cold mornings, too, before the heater gets the basement warmed up. Yeah, Ugg boots definitely look warm and toasty. All right. I don't have any hiking shoes. And I honestly don't really think of my hiking boots as hiking boots. They're just my boots. I like in the same way I'm a pickup truck guy. I'm a boot guy. If I'm putting on shoes, it's my boots. They're up over the ankle. I got good ankle support. You got to lace up the extra loops and everything when you put them on. Like that's my shoes if I'm really putting on shoes. Otherwise, I just wear like slip-on sneakers or something like that if I'm not really doing anything that's going to require a lot of ankle support. But if I go do anything, those are my shoes, are basically my hiking boots, but they are boots. And so when I go hiking, that's what I wear because they are hiking boots. The trail running shoes I got because I wanted to, when I first started losing weight, I wanted to go trail running. And so I got some trail running shoes and then I tried jogging and I didn't like it at all. And so I don't really wear the trail running shoes except if it's really hot out. If we're going for a walk in the woods or something, I will wear them because they're really lightweight. They get amazing traction. When I walk, I can actually feel air moving around my foot. They keep my feet nice and cool, but they're also really good grippy traction, shoes for being out in the woods, but no ankle support at all. And that's kind of why I don't like them, especially after breaking my ankle that one time. I definitely like the ankle support. Yeah, these boots have me written all over them. All right, Shamu, I will see you later. They're black. They only had them in black, and then like camouflage pattern. And I'm not a big fan of the camouflage pattern. I wasn't able to get them in purple, unfortunately. Yeah, I would imagine jump boots will keep your feet warm. When you got like 4 inches of sole on them. All right. What shall we do on Sunday night? I know I got a lighter around here somewhere. I knew I was going to forget something when I sat down. No, I can't even find. Oh, there it is. It's on the floor. I must have knocked it down. I guess we can think about doing that tower. I'm just not sure what I would put it on. I've tried twice now to get like hash oil in or on a joint, and it just doesn't work. I tried smearing it on the paper one time, and as I smoked it, like the oil like boiled and sort of ran away from where the heat was. And so by the time I got all the way down to the roach, there was still like oil all over it. It wasn't. I could kind of taste it a little bit as I was smoking it, but I threw a roach in the ashtray that had like oil all over it, so I felt like it kind of wasted it. So the other day I rolled a joint, and when I was almost to the top, I actually dripped some hash oil down into it and then melted it in so it soaked into the weed at the top. And I thought maybe as I smoke it, it'll sort of pull the oil in front of it and it will smolder all the way down. And that didn't work either. It sort of burned around it, and then it just kept smoldering and smoking, and all the smoke was coming off the end of it. But when I hit on it, it was just running and burning down the side. And so I eventually just broke the end off and stuck it in the bong and did like a big gooey weed hash oil hit. It was a good hit out of the bong, but it did not work in the joint at all. So I've given up on trying to get the hash oil into a joint. It just ain't gonna work out, I don't think. Now I could get the outside of it moist and then roll it in some dry hash. That might not be a terrible idea to put some hash on the outside of it, but I don't think the hash oil is a good idea. All right, this is what I can use for the fish tower. It's a 3-gallon fish tank, and it had the air stone that went in the bottom with it was a whole kit. I still got the rest of it in the other room, but it's got a lid that goes on it with built-in LEDs, and you put an air stone in the middle, and so there was a central column of bubbles coming up through the center. Got this really early on when I was still just buying all kinds of fish stuff every day. But if we flipped it upside down and put this much of it into the pond, that would make a pretty good sized fish tower in there for the fish to be able to swim up into and look around. The problem is I need to set this on something so it's at the surface rather than, I can't set it on the bottom. So what do I set it on that it'll sit there, and then we can fill it with water? And if you're not familiar with this, if you've never seen anybody do one of these before, you basically put this in the water until it's, an inch underwater or something like that. And then you take a hose and stick it on the inside here, and you suck the air out. And as the air goes out, the water level will rise up into it. And if you get all the air bubbles out, it'll be completely filled with water, and it'll just stand above the surface full of water. And then the fish can swim up into it and, swim around. So all I got to do is find something to put it on, and we'll be able to do that. I think it'll be pretty neat seeing some of my koi and goldfish and whatnot swimming up into it. And like I said, it's not going to be a huge investment. All I got to do is put something in the tank to set that on, put it on there, and fill it with water. If I decide I don't like it, I drain it, take it off, pull the things out of the tank, and the tank's back to the way it was. So, it'll be something to do. It'll be interesting to see what it looks like. Trim your slapping pads. That's not a bad idea, Janice. We can do that on Sunday night. Oh, I didn't even think about that, Art. That makes even more sense. that would definitely be the easy way to do it. So as Ark pointed out, if you're not reading along with the comments, instead of doing it the way I explained it, where you put it in there and suck all the air out of it, you can simply submerge the thing, get all the water out of it, and then lift it up and put it in position without breaking the surface, and it'll be full of water. So that's probably the easier way of doing that. So yeah, that's a good point. I could probably get a couple cinder blocks somewhere, and I know it might not look nice because you'd really be able to see the cinder blocks. But first of all, it would only be temporary just to see how cool it looked. And secondly, if I know anything about fish tanks, and I do, I don't care if you put cinder blocks in there or not. If you give it a month, you're not going to be able to see those cinder blocks because they're going to be just covered with all the growth and everything, and it's just going to be darkness under the water. It'll make for habitat, the caves, the fish can swim through the holes in the cinder block. So something as simple as that might work. If I can find some metal frame or some kind of rack that fits in there that I could set it on top of, maybe we'll try doing something like that. But I'd like to do that. I'd like to try it out and see what it looks like. Again, just for shits and giggles, to be something to do, and it'll be interesting to see how it looks. And then if I don't like it, we can just take it down. Yeah, a YouTube channel I haven't seen in a while. They used to watch my videos long ago before I started doing a lot of drugs and cussing a lot. But Jack and Dan had a bunch of videos where they had tanks like that, and they not only had a tower in one of their tanks, but they had a bridge on a couple of the other ones. They had two tanks side by side, and then they had this big clear PVC pipe that went up and out of one tank over and down into the other. And the fish swam from tank to tank all the time. It was pretty neat looking. I don't really have a setup where I could do something like that. I guess maybe we could try something on the 55 or something, but I don't really want my tanks intermingling with each other necessarily. But stuff like that's pretty neat when you see it was almost like a habit trail, but for fish, So I won't be able to do that. I mean, I guess I could put, something up over and then back into the pond, and you could see the fish swimming through the tube and back down if they ever decided to do that. But the tower, I definitely think they'll go up into that. Yeah, I have to stand it on something. There's no way I can just, it's not going to float at the top of the water full of water. Either the whole thing will sink or I got to stand it on something. I just don't know. I can't think of anything that I've got around the basement that we could stand it on. I wanted to show you my giant ass plant again tonight too, but the lights are already out. So if I remember that on Sunday, we can have a look at that. It's still going. I propped it up even further. I had to take the stake out and pull it over to bring it up to close to upright. But I still have new layers of calyxes coming out. I mean, it's that big in diameter now. It is massive. It is the biggest fucking bud. I've had buds like that before, but it's usually on a plant that's this tall or something. That whole top section would become this huge, massive bud. So I'm going to grow more of that, but I'm going to grow it taller. I'm going to put it in my big tent. We're going to grow one of them, 4 feet tall or something, and see what kind of bud we can get off of that. Cause it's going to be astonishing, I think. Yeah, it would definitely sink if I didn't have anything to prop it up on. I wonder, one thing we can do tonight is get some Windex, some deadly Windex, and try wiping that thing down. It's so old. I'm assuming it looks cloudy because it's just dusty and dirty, and we can probably clean it up. But it is really old, so who knows? It might not be as clear as it used to be anymore. I'm hoping that once we get it cleaned out a little on the inside, I'm just going to do a test run. We don't need to clean the whole thing up, but let's get some of it wiped down and see how clear we can actually get it. Oh yeah, that's going to clean up nicely. So that's the inside. Let's do the outside real quick. So you can see, look how clear that is on the part that I wiped down up here. That is nice and clear. Look at that. So I'll get that whole thing cleaned off, and that'll be just as clear as a bell. That'll work nicely. See, this is one of those things I always saved because it could be useful for something one day. I've never used it for anything. It's just been sitting over here for years and years. But I always figured that will work for something. If nothing else, it's like a container or a bucket or something, you know. But that'll make a cool lookout tower. Again, how long it'll stay there, I don't know. But I got the feeling that it might be pretty neat. Might be an attraction, you know, it added something for people to watch the channel. Something new. I don't know why these damn cones always run when I first light them. It takes me a while to get them going properly. And of course, when I'm live streaming, it goes out constantly because I'm talking. Well, in addition to guppies being, you know, not the smartest fish in your tank, which I'll agree with, they're also surface fish. Their instinct is to go to the surface when they're frightened. You know, I guess in some cases they will swim down and hide in the bushes and whatnot. But guppies are generally considered a surface type fish, and so it'd be like putting a gourami in there, and you know the gourami's tendency is going to be to want to go to the surface. So I can imagine them definitely. It'd be like a guppy trap. You just put it in there, wait till they all swim up to the top, and then you got them because they're not going to be able to figure out how to get back out. I think I need to feed this shrimp tank too. Let me do that real quick while I'm thinking about it. I didn't feed this fish shrimp tank or the one in the bathroom or my shrimp tank. Let me go throw a few granules on them. All right, that's a few granules for them and a few granules for them. And I got one more tank here in the bathroom. Lights are already out. I do have the light in here on a timer. It's on the same timer that my mushroom bag is on. So the fish and the mushrooms get 12 hours on, 12 hours off every day. Comes on about 10 after 9. Not because I have it set for 10 after 9. It's probably set for 9, but the timer is probably not quite accurate anymore. It hasn't been. I haven't updated my timers in years. All of my grow tents go off at slightly different times. Let's see. I just realized I got it on top messages all night. I hope I didn't miss anybody's comments. All right. Oh, wow. It's almost 10 o'clock. All right. I'm going to get on up into first positions here as we're starting to wind down. It is making a difference, Janice. I'll give you a look at it real quick here. We looked at it earlier, but you had not joined us yet. So it's not there yet, but it's been less than a week, and it is a noticeable difference. It is considerably less cloudy. Look at that pile of snails right there in the front. It's like a big cluster orgy of snails. And you can definitely see a lot of movement in there and all those shrimp down on the bottom. So there's a zillion shrimp in this tank, but you can actually see the piece of woodwork in there now. So it is definitely making an improvement. So I'm going to say give it another week, and that'll be nice and clear. One of the things I hadn't considered, and I was talking about it tonight, I was kind of thinking about it. I had pointed out that it was going to take a week or so for the sponge filter. I mean, a couple of weeks for the sponge filter to really start getting cycled in. And even in that, I thought, a couple of weeks isn't going to be, that's pretty fast considering I'm not augmenting the filter or anything. We're just going to put it in there and let it cycle in. Now, I know it is going into a mature tank, so I figured that would speed it along. But one of the things I didn't consider is my goal is not necessarily to have the sponge filter doing the biological filtration. It's just to have the tank more efficiently filtered biologically. I know that sounds like I'm talking in circles, but I don't care the mechanism of how it gets filtered biologically. I just want to make sure it is filtered. And hang on, my thumb screw here to put the camera up and down isn't holding the camera tight anymore. I'm having to really tighten it down. I'm afraid I'm going to break the thing off. There we go. Anyway, what I hadn't thought about when I was saying it's going to take a little while for it to cycle in was even before the sponge filter itself cycles in, the fact that there's now air bubbles and water circulation and the water simply moving around the tank more. It's just that water movement is allowing the tank itself to do some of the cycling. Now, it's probably not well established because the water was so stagnant before. There was so little circulation in there before that the tank probably wasn't really well established. So even with the additional circulation, and the tank still has to sort of grow into itself. But I hadn't really thought about the idea that simply putting the air stone in there was going to give me more circulation, and it was immediately going to start having an impact. And so that's where we are now. I think the impact we're seeing is more from the fact that the water is circulating around the existing tank than it is that the sponge filter itself has begun having an impact. So as that filter cycles in, and then the rest of the tank sort of grows in and develops with this new water circulation, that tank's going to be crystal clear in no time. You give it a couple more weeks and it's going to start looking fantastic. No, I didn't put a backflow valve in it. Now, I got a backflow valve and I meant to put one in it. What I did put in it was one of those little dial restrictor valves, and I have it set at about a half the amount of air that could go through it, because at full crank it was really blowing a lot of bubbles. It's a fairly big filter, fairly big air pump for such a small tank. And so I did put one of those little restrictor valves on it, but I did not put a backflow valve on it. Let me double check. I'm sure I got several of them lying around. I got so much of that kind of junk over here. I have piles of it. Like literally, it's a fucking mess. I got a bunch of T's. I can see a whole pile of those little check valves I was just talking about. I got extra air stones. I got a whole pile of those fucking check valves. Holy shit, I got so many of them. Here we go. There's a little pile of them. I got a couple of the ouch, that was my head. All right. Yeah, I got a little pile of these. Man, I have so many of those little check valves or restrictor valves. So I got a little backflow valve. We can go put that on. I've got like an old used fish store amount of stuff in the other room like this. Again, it's literally just piles of junk. I'm not the neatest person in the world, as you know. So this is my spare fish keeping area stuff. And it is a pile of stuff. So whenever I need old heaters or sponges or biomaterial, tubing, extra air pumps, any of that kind of shit. That's one of the piles. That's my main pile that I have to go to rummage through. And believe it or not, I know most of what's over there and most of where it is. Like I said, it didn't take me too long to find the restrictor or the backflow valve I was looking for. So let's get that put on. That'll only take a second. All right, let me raise you back up. So I generally like to put it outside the tank, but up near the top. And so we just cut the air line. Make sure with my old man eyes, we're putting it on in the right direction. And now I think we're going to turn the airflow up a little bit. See what kind of bubbling we get. All right, that is still, hang on, I'll take you off of there and show you. This is still a fairly low amount of bubbles compared to full crank, but it's enough that we're now seeing actual bubbles come up in the back there, and that's breaking the surface tension a little bit and making stuff move around. So I think the increased airflow, so you can see the plants are swirling around back there a little bit. I don't know what you can see with that light. You can see that piece of frog bit spinning around. You can see the little duckweeds floating around. So I think with the slightly increased airflow, hence slightly increased water flow, and then with the once the filter actually physically cycles in, we're going to be done with that tank being cloudy. I'm so tired of looking at that tank. If it was just the snail tank, I've said this before, if I was just growing the food snails in there, I wouldn't really care all that much, because why would I care? But it's a pretty tank, and it's got all those cool ass shrimp in there, and it's a nice looking little tank, and I'd like to actually be able to look in there and enjoy it, and you just can't the way it is. So we're close. Why is this fucking camera not working? All right. Let me see. I have had that happen once. Came down one time. The power had shut off. We had a power failure. And I came down, and my 40 in the corner back there was about 3 inches low on water, and none of the pumps were running, none of the filters were running or anything. Again, the room had been shut down, and I sat there looking at it for a minute, like, where the fuck is the water going? And I looked down. Of course, the water, the floor was all wet and everything, and it took me a couple of minutes to piece it together. I thought it was coming from the filter somehow, like the filter was siphoning the tank, but it wasn't. It was the air stone. It was if you don't know how it works, if you've got an airline, and you can do this at home, just to experiment, put a bucket underneath the dripping end, but a little airline going into the tank with no positive air pressure pushing air through it. What happens is the capillary action. Remember when my tank, the pond was leaking? It was water creeping up those folds of plastic and going over the top and dripping down the other side. And the exact same thing happens inside that air tubing. It's so narrow on the inside that as the water sort of creeps up the sides, you can see that in a glass of water. It tries to go up the sides a little bit. Now imagine that being a really, really narrow glass of water, and the water literally goes up. And if it goes past that crest, it will set up a siphon, and it will just start draining your tank. So you don't have to physically start a siphon. if you've got an air stone in your tank and you don't have one of those backflow check valves on it, and you experience a power failure, or your cat unplugs the air filter or something and there's no air pushing through it, doesn't always happen, but it very, very easily can happen, that you will just set up a siphon and your tank will just slowly start draining through that little air hose. So put those little check valves on there and you don't have to worry about it. So I found out the hard way, because I always thought, like, are those necessary? And eventually I found out that, yeah, they are actually, that they're a really good idea. So any tank that I have an air stone on, I have one of those little backflow check valves. All right, everybody, we're going to start winding it down, I think. Any last thoughts, comments, quick discussion topics? I can hang out for a little bit if you got something worth talking about. I really can't believe I went through all that trouble to do this bong. Honestly, the only reason I cleaned this bong up was because I cleaned my other bong up and got it like shiny, like brand new. It looked like I've just brought it home from the store. And I wanted to do a bong hit, but I didn't want to get it dirty again before the live stream. And so I cleaned this one up so I could just use that one while I waited. And so I really don't like that bong. I bought it on kind of a impulse purchase. I went there looking for a bong and I couldn't find anything I liked, and that one looked cool. And I knew it wasn't going to, I got enough experience doing this. I know those great big bongs look cool at parties, but they're not good for smoking out of. And I bought it anyway. It was only $40. But I've never liked it. Yeah, and those check valves aren't even 10 cents. If you buy an air pump, they usually come with both the restrictor valve. Again, I got a pile of them in the other room because I don't always use those. But they come with a backflow, at least the Tetra Whisper filters do. Comes in the box with the air filter, so you don't even have to buy them separate. If you buy the air pump, it's got the little backflow check valve in it, and it's got one of those little restrictor valves so you can adjust the airflow. That just comes in the package. Hey, Mike. Yeah, I'm getting out of here, but you're coming in at the last minute. I got to say hello at least. How much plants is too much? As far as I'm concerned, it's either when the fish don't have room to be fish anymore, they can't really get around the tank and feed properly and whatnot. I do have that problem with my 55 occasionally. I do got to get in there and thin that out so the fish have room to swim. Or the other thing is when you don't like it anymore. That's up to the individual. I like tanks with lots of bushy growth, and other people want more open tanks. And so it's up to you. But I do often think of my tanks as aquatic gardens that have fish swimming around in them, as easily as I think about them as fish tanks with plants growing in them. I generally refer to them as fish tanks with plants growing in them, since physically that's sold as a fish tank, et cetera, et cetera. But in my mind, it's interchangeable. That could just as easily be an aquatic garden, and having fish in there is just part of the environment. It, helps with the whole, feeding the plants process and everything. So again, it's all just one big system to me. All right, everybody, I'm going to keep working my stuff into the other room so I got less to clean up after the show's over. Again, I'll give you guys a few minutes to get any last thoughts or comments in. Any questions or concerns? Got a new Doctor Who that's going to premiere tomorrow. I didn't even think about it until today, but the Doctor Who channel I watch that premieres new videos, it usually does one on Wednesday and Saturday is how it seems to fall out. And the one they do on Saturday, I always thought it was weird that it goes live at 4 p.m. And then I realized the original run of the show, again, it was aired as a children's show, and it came on Saturday afternoon at 4 p.m. I always think about Doctor Who as Saturday night at midnight because that's when it came on Maryland Public Television. I'd always stay up late on Saturdays to watch it. But it was a Saturday afternoon children's show on the BBC, you know, where it originally aired, you know, just because I watched it at midnight on Saturday. And so they're kind of keeping with tradition by releasing them on Saturday afternoon at 4 o'clock. But tomorrow we got another episode releasing. I am good on plants. I actually got an email tonight. I looked at it briefly, but I didn't have time to respond. Somebody must have seen one of my old videos or something because they asked me about, you know, they're interested in the plants I have for sale. Do I still have like the water sprite? And, you know, I'm like, yeah, I haven't done that in a long time. You know, not enough to sell anyway. So I'll have to get back to them and let them know if they're really looking for something. I can probably get them a few things, but I don't really sell plants anymore. More hassle than it's worth for me. Although at this point I'm so fucking broken and in need of money, I'll sell every plant I can get. If I can make $5 off of it, $5 is $5. So, all right, everybody, we are at the 2-hour mark. Didn't think I was going to make it tonight. I was falling asleep before the damn live show went live. But we made it. So I am going to say thanks again for hanging out with me on a Friday night. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you are interested in any of ARC's plants and we end the show before you get a chance to say anything to me, you can either come back Sunday night or you can email me or whatever, and I can put you in touch. So if you're looking for any plants from ARC and you can't get a hold of him, you can get a hold of me and I'll put you in touch. But otherwise, I'm going to say thanks for hanging out. Don't forget Sunday night. We are going to plan to have, you know, do some work in the pond. We're going to try to get that tower put in if I can find something over the weekend to stack it on. So tune in to find out. Yeah, Ludwigia grows out of control. I've never had guppy grass. But I do my Java moss. I throw handfuls of the Java moss away all the time. I feel a little guilty about it, but you get used to it after a while. It's just like, there's only so much I can do with it. You know, I really, why don't you give it away? Why don't you sell? You know, like there's only so much I can do with it. There's only so many people that even want it. If I was giving it away for free, I literally can get buckets of the stuff, and so I just throw most of that shit away. So anyway. All right, everybody. So long, and thanks for all the fish, and I will see you all again Sunday. Good night.